Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today for our midweek meta deck, we are playing ThomasH's Legacy Challenge winning Mono Blue Painter deck. Now I've played Mono Blue Painter a while back, but it hasn't really been around for a little while, so I'm interested to see how this performs in today's meta, because things obviously changed quite a lot over the last few months of Legacy. So, what is this deck trying to do? Essentially, we're trying to assemble the Painter's Servant and Grindstone combo. Painter's Servant makes all the cards that are in your opponent's library the same colour. Grindstone mills them. If they're the same colour, it keeps doing it. So these two cards will mill your opponent's entire library and win you the game. This is all encased in a sort of 8-cast shell. So we've got a bunch of 0-drop artifacts we can use to power up things like Emry, Thoughtcast, and Thought Monitor to sort of churn through our deck and draw a bunch of cards. We've got a nice suite of 7 counter spells that we can play alongside this. We've also got this really powerful Urza Saga backup plan, so we can just crank out some tokens that are really huge because of all our artifact synergies. We're going to have these massive guys that we can just beat down. We've also got Shadowspear to stick on them and a few other silver bullets to find, things like the Soul-Guide Lantern, Pithing Needle, and the Aether Spellbomb. So, you know, this is all kind of like known stuff within Legacy for the most part. But we also got these 3 Karns here, which is kind of interesting. Now, Karn's not normally a card that you really want to be playing against a lot of the tempo decks that are in the format right now, because trying to resolve this 4-mana spell against a bunch of dazes and things can be difficult. But obviously, this deck has done the work and won a challenge, so clearly this is a pretty good spot for it. We've got the fast mana to help out, and we've also got the Mox Opals and things. We've got the counters to protect it, and once it gets into play, we can do quite a lot with it. We can find our combo pieces in Grindstone and Painter. We can get a bridge to hide behind. You know, we've got Haywire Mites, Graveyard Hate, Liquimetal Coating for the little turn-by-turn destruction of all their lands. We don't have a Mycosynth Lattice kill, which is interesting here, so you can't just lock our opponent out that way. But maybe that's a concession to sort of like the tempo-y things, where you need to dedicate your sideboard space to actually things that impact the board a bit more instead of just having this nice Oops I Win button. And we already have Oops I Win buttons in the form of our Grindstone and Painter kill. Also, I should mention that Grindstone is a lovely thing we can find off as a Saga to help achieve our combo. Buried in our lands, we've got an Otawara to try and help control some permanents in play, especially things like Collect Roof that we might want to bounce and then try and counter them back on the way down, because some decks have that in the main deck because of Green Sun Zenith and such like. So that's pretty much the main deck, and a lot of the sideboard too. We've just got a few other tools here. So Blue Blast, we can name whatever we want with Painter, so we can make our Blue Blast work. We've got some Force of Negations to stop things that are trying to come underneath us. We've got some Hydroblast, same reason as Blue Blast. We've got 3 Dismembers, because we will need to kill some creatures, like the Collect Roof that I mentioned. And we've also got a Red Blast, for when we're playing against like blue heavy decks, we can board this in, because we do have Spire of Industry, which chats for all colours. And we've got the Mox Opals and the Lotus Petal, so we should be able to afford this one of Red Blast as well. That way we can sort of force through what we're trying to. And that's it, that's pretty much the deck. It's been a hot minute since I've played some Blue Painter, so I'm excited to see how it fares today. Remember to like and subscribe as well to my channel before we get started. It really does help me out, and it means you don't miss any of my content. Alright, let's jam ThomasH's Legacy Challenge winning Mono Blue Painter deck. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, from the play for our first game, we've got a Force of Will that we can do some things with. We've also got a Painter, so we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast turn 1 Painter, turn 2 Thoughtcast. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I will keep this. We've also got a Force of Will to sort of keep us safe from anything too spooky from the other side of the table. Alright, let's get this. And so we have some options about what we're naming here. I'm inclined to name black so that we can dodge snuff outs. But then if we name blue, we can turn on stuff for our opponent in a big way. We don't really need to turn anything on blue for Force of Will. If we turn on black, we can turn on grief in a big way too. So it's kind of an awkward name here, but I will name the black just to dodge the snuff out here. And we'll play as Lotus Petal. And hopefully that hasn't given our opponent the option to grief. But I don't really help them out Force of Will wise, because we already have our card for Force of Will here. And naming white doesn't really do very much. Okay. There is just a plain mountain over there. Interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast this Thoughtcast here. Let's see what we're working with. We could see a Pyroblast of our opponent's on Painter here. Okay, so we have a Mox Opal. That's interesting. So the question is, are we playing out our Painted Servant here? Or are we going to jam... I don't really want to jam this Thought Monitor because this is our blue card. So we could play out another Painted Servant here. Or we could play out the Grindstone. Playing out the Painted Servant gives us protection against removal next turn. It does cost us our Lotus Petal though. But I think that's acceptable. Alright, we'll name black as well. We might as well get our 1 point of damage in. So next turn, we can play our Grindstone activated because we have 3 mana available. A Wasteland can shut us off of doing that, which is the one risk we have of playing the Painted Servant, but this way plays around removal, which is more of what I'm expecting from our opponent with their mountains up. Right, we'll play out another artifact. We'll play out a Grindstone. Let's see how our opponent wants to tackle this. Alright, they're going to scoop it up, only showing us Mountain, Mountain. Okay. So Mountain, Mountain could be a Painted Servant deck. It could be a mono red burn, which is unlikely because they didn't play any spells. It could be a prison deck, but then why didn't they play anything on 2 is interesting. I'm not really sure what we're working with here, but I will be boarding in some blue blasts. I think that's probably a given there. Our opponent's going to have some amount of red blasts as well, so I'm kind of a little bit off on these Force of Wills, but they might become somewhat essential depending on what our opponent's doing. So I don't really want to go too low on them. I think Dismember is an interesting one because if they're Painter, we want to kill their Painters and stuff. If they're mono red, we want to blow up their creatures, like the Rabble Masters and things like that. So I think this makes sense here. If they're Painter, we're going to want this Soulguide Lantern. I guess Aether Spellbomb is a little bit less exciting. This is obviously great if they are playing Painter. You can probably trim a Bauble, but I don't want to trim any more than that. And Pithing Needle was an interesting one. It has a lot of targets, but if we remove this, we can always go and fetch it with the Karn. So we're going to go like this. We could always go a little bit lighter on the Dismembers here and just keep the Pithing Needle. Okay, this is a turn 3 Goldfish that also just does Urza Saga things if we want it to. We can keep that. Let's see what our opponent's up to and see if we get a better idea of how badly we've sideboarded here. Ancient Tomb. Okay. So that's kind of Painter / mono red. I don't think they're goblins because they didn't do anything. Like, they're more likely to be Painter and they're just holding up these blue blasts. Blood Moon. Like, that's pretty good against what we're doing here. Chalice for 0. Also not too shabby. So we're looking at mono red prison most likely. So let's play out the only thing we can, our basic island. Like, we can just play some lands and win the game here. Because we have Painted Servant, we have Grindstone. Alright, so our opponent got 2-drop here. It's going to be... Okay, Soothing Spirit Guide. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That's a pretty strong one. Let's see what we can find here. A Mishra's Bauble that we can't do anything with. Okay. So we could deploy our Painted Servant now to save ourselves some damage. This does expose it to removal, but our opponent's only got 1 card in hand. So I think it's worth trying to keep ourselves alive here. Do we want... If we name red, then we get to blow up their Chalice if we want to as well. But it does make their Fury easier to cast. We name blue. That turns on their Pyroblast if they have them. They're unlikely to have that many of them though. And it turns on our Force of Wills. So I think we're going to name the blue here. We're not playing out our zeros into this Chalice on 0. Alright, our opponent's got Fable of the Mirror Breaker going. Let's see how many cards they decide to ditch. They didn't discard any cards. That probably doesn't bode amazingly well for us. Alright, so there's the Fury that we said would be a bad thing to happen. And it's happened. Alright. But we didn't enable that because we didn't name red. It's just the thing they had. But it does punish us a little bit for playing out the Painter. But we need to get some artifacts on board so we can start drawing some cards with this Thought Monitor down the line. A Grindstone. Okay, so we can't play the Saga, so we immediately die under Blood Moon because that's how that works. So we will play ourselves this Grindstone. And we can slow grind our opponent to get some information. They don't really use their graveyard, so that's not going to be an issue. The only things that they use their graveyard for is unlicensed hearse activations, which they may or may not even have in. Alright, so things are going to get a little bit squiffy for us in the very near future. But at least that Fury's gone, and it's not going to be a Fury they can keep copying stuff with the Reflection, because I don't think we beat that. Another Urza Saga is not really where I want to be. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. That's not going to cast the Thought Monitor. We can't play our 0-drops. We can't play any of these 3 Urza Sagas. So we don't have any available plays. Turn 1 Blood Moon doing work. And now we know that our opponent is a prison deck rather than a painter deck. It means we are more likely to... Well, we're going to have some better sideboarding next because we're going to get in our things that can counter their spooky bits and pieces. But I figured just playing Mountain, Mountain and then doing nothing. That spoke to me more of a holding up Pyroblast. I'm not sure what their hand in the first game was. So they've tricked us a little bit. They might have thought they were just dead anyway and just tried to deny us information. Right, let's just mill them for a bit. Get some information about what's in their deck. Oh, they're running Karn. That's some really important information to have. A Mox Opal, that's another 0-drop that we can't do anything with. So we'll say no to that one. So this turn they hit us for 6, and then the next turn they kill us because they can make as many of these as they want. So actually they're probably going to hit us for 2 this turn, and then they just pay a whole bunch to make a bunch of copies after our end step. So I don't believe we have a route. Okay. Yes. Yeah, no, they do hit us for 6 because this needs to trigger for another turn, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. So we got a little bit more time, but not a lot. This is half our life total. We die next turn anyway. But we're not dead right now. However, what are we supposed to do? We can get some more information about our opponent's deck. Okay, Trinisphere, more Furies, not a surprise. A Lotus Petal. Right, let's get some more information about our opponent's deck. Sekenzen, okay. These Sagas were not helping us out there. But now we know our opponent's on. I had a slightly wrong read. So these sort of things are going to be useful for us. The Pithing Needle is interesting against Broadside Bombardiers, but I think we're better off just trying to Hydroblast or counterspell it for the most part. The Dismember is still fine here. I don't hate that. The Karn is good. We do not require the Soul Guide Lantern. The Shadowspear is pretty useful still. I think we want to keep our combo pieces in. We've already boarded out 1 Bauble. We've got 4 more cuts if we want to leave. That's so many cuts. Maybe... How many blue cards do we actually have right now? So we have 23 if we have all of these cards in. So we could trim a couple of rebukes here to get the Force of Negations. Because we need the counter magic that's online earlier. Maybe we'll trim a Mox Opal because those are very bad in the face of some of the things our opponent can do. And we could trim a Saga. Or we could trim a Thought Monitor because they're quite steep in cost. They are blue though, but we have the Painted Servant to do that. I think we do need to just dodge the Blood Moon with various counter magic that we can have available. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Still not quite there. I think we need to mulligan this one. What does this one achieve? Yeah, this one's pretty reasonable actually. We can keep this. I don't think we want this Karn. We just draw into some mana here. So we can pick out the seat, and then we can use that to blow up something. Now the other option is we can play the Grindstone on 1 to dodge something like a Chalice for 1. But that means we're shields down on this Hydroblast. So we have to make that decision right now. I think I'm going to hold up the Hydroblast and we can play the Grindstone and hold up Hydroblast next turn. I just don't want to get caught out by an early moon. Alright, yeah. And the chances are they're going to play the Chalice on 0, which is fine. We've cut some of our zeros. We don't need to play 0-drops to win the game. Alright. Nothing so much on a turn 1. That's good. I think I want to play the Spire of Industry over the Painted Servant right now. Because I don't want as many artifacts in play as possible, because that could go awry for us if our opponent has the card that just blows up all the artifacts and for some reason we can't counterspell it. Let's say they have a Pyroblast down the line or something. I haven't seen Sticker Goblins, but some of these prison decks are running them, and if they've got the top end of the Karn, that's not an impossibility. A Chalice of the Void where X equals 1. That's interesting, because that shuts off our Hydroblast. But we don't really have an answer to that. Well, we don't need an answer to it, but... Okay. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. Are we just throwing out this Painter and saying, let's hope this is good enough, and that they can't remove it? The downside of that is if our opponent has something like a Fury, that gets us pretty badly there, and we don't really have a route to win the game here. But do we need to try and just eject ourselves from this game with this Painter? I think we're going to play the Painter out, because we don't necessarily know things are going to get any better for us. If we name blue here, that turns on our Force of Wills a little bit better. We can pitch these 0 drops that we're not casting, for example. Right, don't kill our Painted Servant. That's all I ask. Okay, they're going to kill our Painted Servant, and we don't get to counter this with our Hydroblast because of the Chalice. What do we snipe from in their hand? A Fable and Mirror Breaker is what we're getting for our troubles here. Oh, they got another Fable, sure. Emry is very good here. Pop our Graveyard Arcs is a pretty relevant zone. Okay. I'm somewhat inclined to shoot this so they can't get up to 4 mana this turn. But let's see what they do with their cards with Fable. Because we don't want them to cast the 4 mana. It's like 1... Is it 2 red? I can't remember the cost of that card. They're pitching a bunch of stuff. So they might be relying on the extra mana from this goblin. Okay, City of Traitors. Let's see what they have here. A Magus of the Moon. Do I care about Magus of the Moon? What does this actually do? They've got no cards in hand. This stops our Urza Saga being a mana source, but we don't care about that. Do we care about them having more mana? Or do we care about... this is an interesting one. We can just let this one go. We've got the Dismember, we can cast it whenever we want. It costs us life to do so. But again, that's fine. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give them an artifact bit of mana. They have 4 mana, which is enough to cast a scary thing that can just ruin us anyway. But then it's also... They don't have any cards in hand, so we just have to kind of suck it up, I think. Alright, let's get this Painted Servant into play. Let's cast this Painted Servant. We'll name blue. And if we'd have killed the Magus in our opponent's turn, we could have won the game right here and now. But our opponent's got 1 card in hand. They should know if they are winning or losing this game at this point. Alright, they were not winning the game and we got there. Blue better than red in Legacy, who'd have thought? So we did board a little bit squiffy for the second game because I had more of an inclination that our opponent was on the Painter deck, because I don't know what hands a mono-red prison deck is keeping where it goes mountain, mountain, and does nothing. So I assumed that they were a Painter deck that was maybe holding up some Pyroblasts once they saw that we were like a blue Painter deck. But I had the slightly wrong read, but I didn't board fully into either one, but I just kind of edged slightly towards the Painter one. Anyway, we're 1-0, let's roll into round 2. Right, we're on the die roll again, not a bad place to be. What does our hand achieve? Let's have a look. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're kind of like not doing anything. We're spinning our wheels a little bit here, but not actually spinning them, if you know what I mean. I think we need to mulligan into something that actually has a bit more of a game plan. Okay, so 1 artifact, 2 artifact, 3 artifact, 4, 5, and then we can also Thoughtcast. Yep, this seems a bit of a better one. We have to decide what we're losing here. I think we're probably looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we throw back the Spire of Industry here, we can just jam a couple of Thoughtcasts down our opponent's throat early on. So this is 1 artifact, 2 artifact, 3 artifact. Let me get this cheeky little draw 2 on turn 1. Would I like to draw 2 more cards, or would I like to draw 3 more cards? So if we want to do this other Thoughtcast, we're going to need to sacrifice this Lotus Petal to do it. I think that's acceptable. Alright, that's the sort of thing we're looking for. Let's see what our opponent's up to. We've already got Metalcraft off this seat if we want it. A Lotus Petal. Okay, I'm glad that we took an extra card to try and dig to a force or some interaction here. Hopefully we'll find a blue card here. We did not find a blue card. Okay, so we are shields down if our opponent is some sort of combo deck, which seems likely given their Lotus Petal. But it could be something more akin to Initiative, which is not really a combo deck, but can sometimes feel like it where they just need to sort of play a bunch of stuff and play their one spell. Oh, okay, so this was a real bad situation for us. This looks like oops all spells. So they might well kill us this turn. They kept on 7, so they should be able to kill us, probably with protection. Nothing here says Painter's Servant. Everything here is going to be information they already know. We'll let them do this so we can get a full look at their list to see if they're the mono black build or not, because they will mill their entire deck in the process of winning this game. But nothing here tells them that we're playing Painter's Servant. Okay. So they need this mana to go off next turn is what that's telling me. So how does that impact how we play this turn? Does an Otawara do anything? if they put the... if they have Narcomoebas, right? If they put 3 Narcomoebas into play, we can bounce 1, so they won't have enough to dread return. But the issue with doing this is that we can't afford to play our Otawara because we don't have the artifact count right now. So we can't play this out and play this because this is 4 mana. So we need to play this Emry. Our opponent could be like Black Saga Storm or something, so they're going to be going a little bit slower than Oops or Spells. This might give our opponent more information, we might be dead anyway. But they've given us a turn here. So if they're Oops or Spells, you'd normally expect them just to kill you turn 1. But maybe they just thought, okay, well, Thoughtseize turn 1, kill you turn 2. So we're going to shred these cards in. Soulguide Lantern. That's a very good one for next turn. Having Emry in play does reduce the cost of Otawara by 1. But we don't have 3 mana. And we can't get 3 mana right now. So are we just playing out this Urza Saga, or are we playing this Seat of the Synod and investing for the future to give us more artifacts? I think that's acceptable. This gives us Otawara next turn if we need to do something with it, because you probably want to be putting Soulguide Lantern into play next turn anyway. But we can play the Lantern and the Saga at the same time. Now, we could try for like a... We could try for like a Mishra's Bauble or something, but I think the Soulguide Lantern is where I would rather be here. This cantrips if we need it to. I'll play this, and we'll use our Saga to play the Lantern. Kind of amazed we're still even playing this game. We do have an Otawara if we require it. We've also got a Soulguide Lantern activation to exile their graveyard if that's the thing we want to do. We can always just cycle this to draw an extra card in our opponent's end step. We've got some options available to us. And we've got a plan where there's a Saga. That's, you know, a thing that will win the game if it goes unchecked. A Vault of Whispers. Okay, so they are mono black Saga Storm. Does that mean we need to cycle this Soulguide Lantern? Or are we happy just to keep ploughing away with our constructs? So I think we're going to draw a card with this. Just get the engine going. Okay, they got a Bowmasters. That's unfortunate, because that's going to take out our Emry. Was not expecting that from this sort of start. Interesting. So we're going to lose that Soulguide Lantern now, so we're not covered against a Gaia's World line. Interesting. Right, so this learns how to do some more stuff. Play this out. So 2 mana goes into this to make a construct. If we play the Ancient Tomb, we have the ability to play an Otawara if we need to. So we could bounce this Orc army, but I don't think that's what this game is going to be about. But we'll see. Maybe our opponent's playing that Orcish Combo Masters deck that I built ages ago when it first came out. That I ran a couple of leagues with. Lion's Eye Diamond. Yeah, it does feel like they might be. I think I 5-0 10-0'd with my first draft of that deck on the channel. A Dark Ritual. Right, our opponent's got 3 cards left in hand here. So Orcish Bowmasters is kind of a reason why you see a lot less 8 cast and Blue Painter generally. Because if you're trying to draw a whole extra bunch of cards and they're just going to be pinging everything down with Bowmasters, you know, that's why the 8 cast decks tend to be more about playing a Patchwork Automaton or a Kappa Cannoneer rather than just drawing a bunch of cards and burying your opponent that way. So our opponent could front side an Echo of Eons here. Alright, what have they discarded? They've discarded the Echo. So we're going to draw some cards, but our opponent is going to be pinging us for 7 here. Not a massive fan of that happening to us. But I don't think it's worth Ottawaring. So we could bounce the Bowmasters. Then they replay the Bowmasters. And then where are we? I think we're better off just taking the 7. As weird as that is. Not a fan of this. But, okay. Karn is a pretty good find. We can get the Aether Spellbomb next turn to bounce this big Orc army. So we'll be taking a pretty sizable chunk this turn. But hopefully the Force of Will keep us alive long enough. Oh, no, we take more than 14 here, don't we? We take 16 total. A Thoughtcast. Well, we're going to lose our Force of Will, I believe. Although I think we've got a lot of really powerful tools in this matchup. So even if we lose the first game, at least we know what sort of opening hands we're looking for. And Karn is just a really problematic card for our opponent to deal with. They took the Karn, which means they're not killing us this turn. That's interesting. So we can make our Saga, bounce their Orcish Bowmasters, or not their Orcish Bowmasters, their Orc army. Ugh, another Bowmasters. Is that where my fight is? I don't think it is. Yuck. We just have to let that one go. Alright, we need to stop another draw effect. There's a Lion's Eye Diamond. They're going to try and spin again and just eat this Force of Will out of our hand. Alright. I think they're just attacking with the big boy. That's going to put us to 2, which is not the best life total ever. Does mean we still can fire off a Force of Will. They got another Orcish Bowmasters in hand. Then we have to counterspell that one, because that will be 1 ping to us and then grow on the Orc army. Yeah. So we have to counterspell this, otherwise we die. Then our opponent puts us to 1. They're paying cost for something. They got another one. Alright. That's all 4 Orcish Bowmasters. I will take my loss there. Okay, so this is the matchup where these Force of Negations are probably going to be pretty good. The Dismembers will have text because they'll get rid of these Orcish Bowmasters, which are obviously like a significant part of what they're trying to accomplish. There is an argument for Haywire Mite here. I'm not convinced that's where I want to be though. I think I like a lot of the tools we have available to us. This isn't really... I guess we don't need the Pithing Needle here. Spellbomb is good if they go tall with a guy that we can't quite nail. Let's just put all our blue cards in one pile. See how many we have. 21. Okay. I don't really want to cut any blue cards in that case. We can trim on Grindstones because we can fetch them with his Sagas. We can probably trim on a Painter here as well. We just need to stop them winning the game. And Karn is pretty effective at doing that. Do we need Baubles? They give us the ability to draw extra cards, but they're pretty sketchy against the old Bowmasters. But maybe we need that mana. Not necessarily. Do we get rid of an Opal here? Sure. Let's do something along these lines, I think. Now, if we get a Karn into play when our opponent doesn't really have anything going on, we should be alright. So what does our opening hand here do? We have Seat into nothing. We need some sort of interaction with our opponent's deck. This is a lot of interaction. Is this a fool's errand? We're going to need some help if we keep a hand that looks like this. I will keep this because of how all in their deck can be. I will get rid of Shadowspear. So we have an answer to Bowmasters. We have an answer to like a spooky spell. We have a Grindstone, which we can use to start working towards Metalcraft. So when our Saga pops, hopefully we'll be able to get an Opal here. But this is a bit of a risky one. But this is quite a sort of skewed, polarizing matchup. I don't know how close to the deck I built that our opponent is playing. But the deck I played basically wanted to try and go off turn 1 as often as possible. So we kind of need to lean into beating that. The lower our opponent goes, the better our mulligan looks. We only need to find one of our soul lands and all of a sudden our hand is great as opposed to like keepable. And considering the main thing we're looking for is counter spells to begin with here, I think keeping this one, even though the mana base is definitely a bit shaky in this hand, I think it's still worth it. We can always get a Lotus Petal off the Saga if we think that's going to help. Alright, let's play this. So we have a choice here. We can hold up the Dismember for the Orcish Bowmasters, or we can play the Grindstone. I think this turn we just want to hold up the Dismember. There is a Lotus Petal. Because this way the Orcish Bowmasters isn't a must counter, because we can just kill it. Alright, I assume our opponent's just going to spin the wheel here. A Cabal Therapy. Sure, you can hit. We have 2 force effects here. Names Force of Will. Okay, so we lose our Force of Will, but we still have this Force of Negation. So there was an option earlier where we could try and counterspell the Lion's Eye Diamond, so they don't have Metalcraft. But I think when they were on 5 cards, it's probably best to just try and hit the thing that actually does something for them. Right, so no Orcish Bowmaster's turn. Love to draw a mana source. We did draw a mana source. Not necessarily the ideal mana source, but I will take it. Let's just play our Grindstone out. And let's pass the turn. So Metallic Rebuke still requires you to have a blue source. So this is just going to be our pitch card. We've got the Orcish Bowmasters itself covered. Another Lotus Petal. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. We have one very simple line of interaction. It'll either be good enough or it won't. And this is all face up for our opponent as well. Surge Node. Remove charge counter from center, put charge counter on target artifact. Interesting. So this is usually a thing to answer Chalice of the Void. Okay, you can have that. I don't think that's impacting what we're doing here. So the reason people normally play Surge Node is for decks that will put Chalice on 0. But they know that we're very unlikely to be playing a Chalice on 0 deck. So I'm curious. Maybe they know that we have Chalice and that we might be... Well, we don't, but 8-cast decks tend to have Chalice and they know that that's the thing that we'd still be willing to put on 0 because it hurts them more than us. So I guess it makes some sense there. And that definitely tells me that our opponent doesn't have a red splash for Burning Wish, which I think I had when I built the deck. So our opponent's definitely on a slightly different thing. I think Quentin Coleman, I think it was, might be messing around with something similar. All right, one card left in our opponent's hand. Okay, interesting. Sure, we can activate this. What do I want here? I think a Soul Guide Lantern is very tempting. But the Lotus Petal gives us an emergency button if we need it for a Bowmasters. Right, I think we're going to get the Petal here. Let's resolve. And to use our mana that we've got floating, I'm going to play this Opal. And then we're going to make a construct here. So we have a threat, we have a counter spell, we have a removal spell. We can make this as a Saga. We'll see what we draw. If we draw a mana source, then we probably will make this construct token. I guess we can always just get the petals. We can just turn this petal into a construct. That's probably worth doing, actually. But again, we don't really know what our opponent has got in their hand. I have to imagine there's an Echo. Okay, let's make a friend. And this can recycle into another petal. And we can attack for 5. And then if we play this Mox, we can have Dismember up as well. But is that worth it right now? That'll give us Dismember and Force of Negation. And is this Mox Opal getting any better? Probably not. So just play it out. Keep this one. Yeah, so we can Metallic Rebuke and Dismember, if that's a thing we need to do. Because we can tap our untapped artifacts. Okay, so we're going to see a Dark Ritual here. That might just be bait to get us to cast something. But we've got the Rebuke and we've got the Force here. Alright, so there's an Echo in the graveyard and they've got another Echo there. That's interesting. So we probably want to just counterspell this one straight up. And then force them to send the other one. I think that's reasonable. Because then they're going to have reduced mana on their turn. After they've drawn 7. So this one will resolve. Okay, we have drawn into another Force of Negation, but we do have to get through our opponent's full grip, and they've got some number of discard spells in their deck. This hand is very close to killing our opponent next turn. Actually, can we just kill them with artifact count? 1, 2, so 2, 4, 10, 14. It's close. Alright, so our opponent has an Urza Saga now. So if that's their only land, then they're playing it. But if it's not their only land, then they're sort of settling in to play another turn cycle, which would be good for us, potentially. So we need to decide what is the thing we're countering along this passageway. Hopefully it'll be like a really obvious one, but we'll see. If we draw a 0 mana artifact, we will have lethal damage now, right? So we've got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 damage. So we put our opponent to 1 with what we currently have in hand. We can risk it all off of Thoughtcast. A Chrome Mox. I don't think that's where we're fighting here. I want to fight on something like a Beseech the Mirror or another Echo. Is that an Agadeem's Awakening? Yes, okay. Another Chrome Mox. Alright, if they're imprinting on this, they have 1 spell. And then we have 1 counter spell, so that's pretty good for us. Are they imprinting? They are. And that is a Tendrils. So they must be running multiple Tendrils, I think. Alright, what does our opponent have here? An Echo of Eons. Okay, so we will just say no to this one. We'll leave our opponent with very little. Because this will exile it, so they won't be able to flash it back next turn. We don't have a route to Pain to Kill unless we draw like a Petal or something. Another Force. Okay, that's not terrible for us, is it? So we can play this one out to pump our constructs. We can play this one out to pump our constructs. We can name blue to turn on our Force of Will. And our opponent's had enough. Alright, tough. We've got another one to win. We've seen a little bit more of our opponent's deck. Doesn't really give us anything else that we want action for. I don't think we're playing the Pithing Needle there, Grindstone type. Sorry, Pithing Needle there as a Saga type plan. We can always Karn for an Ensnaring Bridge if that happens. But Karn should just be a pretty hard lock on the game anyway. Alright, I think we're just going back in. Loads of blue cards. Let's hope that they're good ones. The fact we have so many counters, we can actually dodge a Cabal Therapy and still have interaction is quite nice. Soulguide Lantern is not as good as you think it might be, because if we play Soulguide Lantern, our opponent can crack the LED and immediately play the Echo, and we never get priority to use our Soulguide. So I think we need to mulligan this into, yeah, a hand that looks like this. We'll keep this. So we want to keep the blue cards, I think. We want to keep the Karn. I kind of want the Dismember as well, though. So this puts us in a bit of an interesting spot. Like, Karn is a 4-mana play, but it's very strong here. I think we're supposed to throw back the Karn, though. And just have the immediate answer to Echo, the immediate answer to Bowmasters, so we don't get pinged to oblivion. Don't believe we're fighting on a Mox Opal. A Lion's Eye Diamond. We could have fought over the Lion's Eye Diamond. I don't think that's correct. So we're probably going to get Thoughts used here. Yes, okay, so they are Thoughts using us. So the option of fighting over the third Lion's Eye Diamond, the third artifact, which is the second Lion's Eye Diamond, is that if we do that and our opponent's got like an Echo anyway, then we don't really get anywhere. Okay, I will play out a Seat of the Synod. Play out this Mox Opal. This means our Emry costs 1 mana. I think we want the Emry down. It does make us slightly more vulnerable to Bowmasters doing it this way, though. If our opponent just wants the Bowmasters, they can just shred us quite hard. That is an interesting one, because we don't have the full artifact count. I think we need to play a little bit cagey and hold up against Bowmasters. They didn't have a land last turn, but that doesn't mean they can't have another Mox Opal now. Tap one, play the other one, or whatever, a Lotus Petal. Yeah, so there's the Lotus Petal. So now they can play Bowmasters and Echo. So we need to make sure we have this Dismember. And Entomb. Okay, so that's going to put the Echo in. But at least there's no Bowmasters. This is always the worry when you play for our opponent when they play an Echo deck into a blue deck, is that they can just draw us into a whole bunch of counter magic. They haven't, but they have to assume that we have one when they've seen that we've got a whole bunch of counter magic in our deck. So we just do a little bit of pause, a little bit of gamesmanship on this Lion's Eye Diamond, and then we let it resolve. Because that's all we've got right now. We are pants down. There's Evolve Whispers. So our opponent might be incentivized to like try and duress affect our hand first, which means they might need to delay their combo for a turn because they're worried about what we've got in hand, which could then buy us a turn to actually find something to put in our hand. So there's this horrible balancing act our opponent has to play. Now they might just decide it's worth going for it now. They might not be able to go for it now. We just don't know. They got 4 cards in hand. There is a Chrome Mox. That's going to put them to 2 cards in hand if they imprint. But they've got so many hits. They've got the Echoes and the Beseechers. They can just keep them rolling around. Right, they put an Echo under the Mox. That's interesting. It feels like a Beseech, which should be lethal at this point. Yep, so there's the Beseech. So this gets them the Gaia's Will. It doesn't even have to get them the Gaia's Will, right? They can just go Beseech, Beseech, Beseech and kill us, which I think is the correct way here. Because that doesn't expose them to any sort of surgical extraction type effect that we could have. It's just safest, I think, to just play with more Beseechers. Yep, so here's another Beseech. And then they're going to Beseech again, get rid of this Mox Opal, get rid of this Vault of Whispers, and they can just Tendrils us in the face. Yep, and there's the Tendrils. GG's opponent. That's our first loss so far. We're now 1-1. Let's go to round 3. So this hand is one that I would be tempted to keep on the draw, but I don't really like it on the play. We've got a lot of interaction, but we need something else. How many hit sets do we have, actually? We should probably work that out. The math says we have 28 hits that make this hand pretty good. But Wasteland is going to be a bit of a pain for us. So, this is a tough one. I think I am going to keep. I'm not an expert with this. Oh wait, it says we're on the... Oh, I thought we were on the play. We're on the draw. This is much better now. Sure, they can have the Chromox. If they play this Chromox before playing their land, I'd be more inclined to counterspell it. Okay, a Blood Moon. I'm going to say no to this one. We'll get rid of the expensive spell that we're not going to cast. Right, another Prison-y matchup by the looks of things. That's fine. The reason I'd be more tempted because they could have like a Cavern and just go and get us that way. Do I want to play the Saga or do I want to play the Seat? I think it's the Seat first. And next time we can play the Emry and then we're cooking with gas. So yeah, the 28 means that we were more than 50. We were more than likely to hit it and we get 2 things. I think we're just going to say no to the Bombardiers. We're never going to get our Emry up and running with the Bombardiers in play. Let's hope that they don't have more follow-up. Alright, let's play our Emry. And the game somewhat hinges on how well we can leverage our Emry here. So we've got a Painted Servant. We've got the Urza Saga. Alright, they're Chromox. They might not imprint, they might just have another Bombardiers here. Okay, so I think we're going to get Bombardiers. Yep. Okay, this is devastating. We need to find a land basically immediately. Otherwise this... Actually, is that even good enough? If we find an artifact land, we can make 3/3s. So yeah, we need to find an artifact land. Otherwise 2/2s might not cut it. Although if they want to burn their Chromox, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world for us. A Force of Will, that's not the one, is it? So 1, 2, 3 mana, so we're not casting this. We're just sitting back with our Force of Will whilst we get beaten down by the Goblin Pirate. Yeah, that is awkward. Okay, this is just more food for the Bombardiers. Right, we could Force of Will this and take 1 life instead of 2, but that's 2 cards to prevent a tiny bit of damage. Which maybe is a thing that we'll end up wanting to have done if it buys us another draw step down the line. But I think it's more important to stop something a bit scarier coming into play. Come on, deck. Painter's Servant. So this is 1 mana, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I think this has to be... No, this has to be the Grindstone, right? If we get the Grindstone and we find a Soul Land, we can just kill our opponent next turn. We find the Mox, we still have mana to work with. So we find the Mox here. That's 2 mana, 4 mana. How much time do I think we have in this game is the question. We're only on 14. I think it's the Mox. This turns on all of our Force of Wills nicely here. Now, if our next draw is an Ancient Tomb, then sure, we should have got the Grindstone and gone for the high roll. But this way we can try and draw a bunch of cards. So this is 1, 2... So this is 1, 2, 3. So it's going to cost 2 mana to Thoughtcast. We can't Thoughtcast this turn. But next turn we can Thoughtcast, and that gives us a few turns to try and get there. They can only fling 2 damage out of Painted Servant, which isn't enough. But they can just crack us for 4 if they want to. We have a Force of Will to stop the scary thing. Because if we got a Grindstone there, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana effectively towards a Thoughtcast. So maybe that would have been better. We'll see. If our opponent doesn't give us something we need to Force of Will, we might be able to fire off 2 Thoughtcasts, and then it's going to feel really worth it, I think. A Mountain. So they can't activate this. This is 4 mana total. So they need 1 more mana before they can do that. So they can attack us for 2 or 4 damage right now. Chromox isn't doing anything else for them. They might try and save it in case we have something like an Emry, or they might just try and put this game to bed before we can draw out of where we are now. They're definitely attacking though, that's for sure. Yeah. Right. This is where we immediately draw Soul Land, isn't it? No, we didn't. Okay. So let's draw some cards. Saga. So that is a win in a few turns. I think we hold this back in case there's something like a Rabble Master. That extra point of damage could be important. We didn't really want to block with it, but I guess there's a Rabble Master counter-spelling it anyway. So we kind of have the win, provided we don't die in the interim. So we're probably Force of Will pitching Thoughtcast or Karn. That's a tricky one. Alright, the Shadow Skull Smashing. This is going to activate their Den of the Bugbear, which is not great for us. Okay. So going to crash for 6 here. This is 7, 8, which means they can kill us next turn, but we can make a Saga token next turn and block. And then we take 4 still. Yeah, I don't think we get out of this one. That land was a real problem for us. So we can block the goblin. They throw this. Then we take 5. How are we winning the game if we do that? I think we just have to take it. We might be trying to Thoughtcast trip our way to win in this game. Because these 2 Urza Sagas... This Urza Saga construct. We can double block the Bombardier. They're going to our face here. Yeah, that makes sense. So next turn when they attack, they'll be attacking for 5 plus the Bombardier. Ancient Tomb. Okay. That's kind of where we need to be. So we have 1 artifact, 2 artifact, 3 artifact. So we go blue, cast this. It's the Saga. Making a guy here doesn't help us. This doesn't help us. Yeah. We needed our opponent to find a spell rather than a land. That's unfortunate, but I think we have a pretty good shot in this matchup anyway. So these things are good, as we described before. These things are also good. Haywire Mite I kind of like here as well, actually. We probably should have brought that in the previous time. We do not require Soul Red Lantern. Pithing Needle can stop Broadside Bombardiers, but that's not very exciting. I don't really want this. Aether Spellbomb. Chalices on 0 are going to jam us up a little bit, so we can board these down. Karn is fine, but it's kind of expensive if we're caught under stuff. Thought Monitor, again, quite expensive, so I think we want to trim this. We can probably trim a Grindstone. And then, is it the Karn that goes? Or is it the Metallic Rebuke? No, we need the blue count, so it probably is a Karn that gets trimmed. Something along these lines seems alright. Because the Haywire Mite can blow up the Saga, the Blood Moon to turn on our Sagas. My reps with painted decks are not really with the blue ones. I don't really like playing 8-cast. I prefer playing blue paint and 2 8-cast, but I'm sure there's some aficionados out there that can give you a better idea of what the correct sideboard here is. So what does this hand do? We can play a Grindstone and not do anything. This is already kind of a mulligan with a Shadowspear anyway, because that's the thing we want to fetch rather than have. Now this is a much nicer hand. We get to keep this. One of these cards has to go back. Interesting. So this and this makes an Emry on turn 1, which is nice. Then we have this held up. Would I rather have a Saga or an Ancient Tomb? I think I'd rather have a Saga. Obviously, we could just sit there and hold up a Hydroblast if that's the thing we want to do, but I think just getting the Emry online is going to be better. And we could just hold up the Force of Will for free instead. Alright, so we have a Painted Servant in there, so that's part of the way towards winning. If our Urza Saga sticks, that's also useful. Basic mana from our opponent. We're going to see some artifact mana, or are we going to see some spirit guides? Either way, they're going to have to pitch multiple cards if they want to have a relevant play this turn. Unless they've got Dead Gone, and they can bop our Emry, and we have to decide if we want to keep the Emry, or if we're trying to play a Saga game, stopping a Blood Moon coming. Chalice the Void, where X equals 0. Honestly, that's fine on the draw. We've already had some of our zeros. We boarded out some of them out. We need to stop some scarier things. Is this a scarier thing that we're trying to stop? I think I'm going to counter it using this Lotus Petal, because we can always get the Lotus Petal back with the Emry. And if we find another blue card, then the Force of Will becomes alive. If our opponent has a bunch more fast mana, then sure, they can deploy something else, but that's not what happened. Okay, so we didn't have a blue card there. So if we play this out, Saga up and running, get this Painter, play the Painter, name blue. That means we can pitch our Mox Opal to our Force of Will. So we have a counter spell available. We just need to survive with this Urza Saga. We can get the Lotus Petal next turn. A Broadside Bombardiers. Is this the actual problem for us right now? It can take out our Emry at the cost of their Chalice. Am I okay with that? I think so, and we counterspell the next thing. I don't feel great about letting this resolve, but I think our plan involves kind of ignoring this. Sure. So the Emry kind of already did some stuff for us. Maybe that's a little fast and loose, we'll see. A land would be beautiful here. Oh, what a land. Alright, so we just have to survive one turn here. We're not blocking with this, I don't believe, so let's just bash for 1. So we've got our Force of Will. The only thing with Force of Willing is something that stops our Grindstone from winning the game. So a Blood Moon, for example. Another Bombardiers. So this is 2 damage, 4 damage. So this can also get thrown at our painter. Sure, I think we counterspell this. And we should just have lethal sewn up here. Unless our opponent's got like an Emrakul Duke in their sideboard, which would be a real pain for us. We do have to tap our Ancient Tomb to make a guy. We definitely want this guy just in case something goes wrong. Alright, we will tap this for mana. Go and find our Grindstone. We will try and mill our opponent out here. Alright, they scooped rather than showing us a deck, so they didn't have the Emrakul Duke. I like how I've sideboarded here. The Metallic Rebukes get worse on the draw. So are we thinking about getting rid of those? If we were, what would we want instead? I don't really want any of these 0 drops. So I don't think that's the case of... I want to be... Do I want another Karn? It's very slow in this matchup. I don't think I want that. Although if you get into like a weird stall position, it can be useful. No, I think I like how to sideboard. I guess we could board out a Rebuke for a Grindstone. We have 20 blue cards though. Maybe we get rid of a Karn for a Grindstone, just to have more ways of trying to win the game. Would I rather have a... Maybe instead of Karn... Oh, I don't want to get rid of all these Karns though. Maybe we'll keep a Thought Monitor instead of a Rebuke. It's harder to get the... I don't know. I could sit and ponder about that all day. So we don't have a counter spell here. Emry is going to be slow getting online. I don't think this is a keeper. Right, our opponent's mulliganed as well. This is really close to making an early Karn, so I think we keep this, and we're probably throwing back a Force and try and use the Karn to like lock us up underneath a bridge or whatever. Okay, we're probably going to see, yep, Sin and Spirit Guide, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. That is such a good card, but is that where we fight? This could be what our opponent's whole hand is built on. I think we just have to try and hit this and cut them off at the knees and hope that they're requiring a load of mana from that to get there. Obviously, we immediately draw a spell that answers that, but that's life for you, isn't it? So we will play out this Haywire Mite, and we will play out this Mox Opal and this Lotus Petal. So next time we have a Karn. That's why I want to play this out, to make sure we have Metalcraft, as well as... We don't want to get locked under a Chalice, so we want to play these ones down. If they play a Blood Moon here, that's kind of annoying. A Rabble Master, I can live with Rabble Master, because we can go and get ourselves an Ensnaring Bridge and kind of sit behind it like a coward. Never underestimate the power of cowardice. Big fan. Right, and as a Saga, also pretty handy here. We don't have to pop our Lotus Petal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could go and get a bridge, which is going to be much better against things like Fury and stuff. Or we can go and get this Liquimetal Coating. I think I just want the bridge to be a bit safer here. My opponent's going to have Artifact Hate is the only problem. Whereas if we were to get the Coating, we could at least try and disrupt our opponent a little bit. I think I'm just going to get the bridge. The other option there is to +1 on this, so it lives for a little bit longer. But I think just getting the thing that means we don't die to big Rabble Master beats is important. So they're probably going to attack everything at Karn. We have to decide if we want to keep our Karn or if we want to keep our Haywire Mite. Because Haywire Mite we can float green and then blow up a Blood Moon. Now we will lose our Saga in that process, which is not ideal, obviously. But we can also get rid of a Chalice if that's a thing that we need to worry about. So yeah, it's all on our opponent and what they play here. We just kind of have to react with the limited tools we have. A Bombardiers. Okay. Spooky one. Alright, so we're going to get this. I'm going to attack with a bunch of stuff. We're going to block. Okay, we're going to block their Rabble Master and gain 2 here. They're probably just going to ping this guy down straight away, just so they can get the Rabble Master hit in. So this is coming at us. This is coming at Karn. This is coming at Karn. Okay. Okay, attacking a lot of stuff at Karn. There's no way we can defend Karn here. Alright, they are just firing us off straight away. We gain 2 life, so we're only taking 3 from this Rabble Master, but that is still not an insignificant amount of damage. We also do not have Metalcraft anymore. We can make Metalcraft using our Saga, but obviously everything comes with a cost at the moment. Okay, so we can play this Ensnaring Bridge. That gives us Metalcraft. Then we play this Emry. What's that going to put into our graveyard over there? Thought Monitor. Not great with the plan we're trying to enact. But we can get this Haywire Mite and just keep like looping that. We can just go and get the Grindstone and just hope that we can get there with the Grindstone in a few turns. But if the Broadside Bombardiers can't attack, that's pretty good. Okay, so evoking this and we're losing our Emry. Okay, a little bit naughty. Yeah. Goodbye, our anything. We still got this Saga ticking. This is going to be a Blood Moon. It is going to be a Blood Moon. Okay, so I should have just kept my mouth shut instead of saying we still had this Saga. Okay, well, we still have this Ensnaring Bridge. Okay, deck. Be kind. I will play this. Otherwise, our opponent will kill us with all their creatures. Yeah, we basically have to be able to play a card every turn, otherwise we die. Not really how I wanted to play this game, but this is the spot we found ourselves in. A Grindstone. Okay, I'll play that out. We're not a million miles away from winning here. Our opponent is hellbent as well, so we're both just top decking. We haven't gone through any painters yet. Makes the moon. Yep, more of the same. If at any point we take damage, we're probably going to die. Yuck. That's not one of the cards I wanted to see here. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage this turn. That's half our life total. Because we drew this Force of Will. Okay. Not great. Yeah. This is certainly a problem. So we will be dead next turn if we can't find a way of getting this Force of Will out of our hand, which seems very unlikely. Why are their goblins so small? Why can't they have bigger goblins, right? Play a Lord or something. Help us out. Yeah, so you play this Grindstone, but then they just get attacked by the goblins and we're dead. Yeah, powerful stuff. Kind of got a little bit jammed up by the running Bombardiers in one game, but it is what it is. We split these matchups so far with the Runner in Prison. I think I quite like how this matchup looks in general, but there's no denying the power of some of these cards. You know, Broadside Bombardiers is just an absolute beast, and having all of our Sagas shut down by moons is obviously annoying too. All right, let's go to round 4. This hand has got 1 redraw. Is that good enough? I think we'll try it. I'm not really an expert in this particular deck, but we've got a redraw. We've got some interaction. We can probably play out the Metallic Rebuke for like as an actual card here as well. So these 3 artifacts alone will cast our Metallic Rebuke if we need it. So we can play out this Grindstone as well. So we could Bauble here. I don't know if we need the Bauble though. We've already got... Do we want to have Force of a blue card and Metallic Rebuke? That's certainly a possibility. I think we'll probably give that a go. A Wasteland. Okay. So we might have Force of a blue card and Metallic Rebuke. No, we just have another Bauble. That's fine. Yeah, I sometimes struggle with these decks where you've got lots of sort of 0-drop do-nothings as part of like what you're trying to do. Do I care about this Grief? I think we probably care a little bit. Yeah, so like I was saying, I sometimes struggle with these decks where you've got a lot of 0-drops you're just kind of trying to do stuff with. It's very hard to evaluate some hands if you don't have the reps with the deck. Alright, I took away our mana source. Let's play this. Let's play this delicious little Soulguide Lantern. Goodbye Grief. Like to see that. And we can fire this off. See if we can get another blue card. Okay, a Troll of Khazad-dûm, sure. So looking for a blue card. Yes, it's a little bit awkward if our opponent's trying to grief us a bunch. But they have to pitch 2 cards to take one of our cards because they can't reanimate grief here. Ponder. So this could be the Esper Scam build that runs Triumph and Plough in the sideboard. We don't really want to be free milling our opponent with our Grindstone. Although we do have a Soulguide Lantern, so it's not the worst, but we also don't have the mana to do that. We don't want to be spending our life via Ancient Tombs to do that either. Alright. Urza Saga is a pretty strong Magic the Gathering card, so let's stick that right down there. And we'll pass the turn. So we could Grindstone our opponent to mill the cards they put on top with the Ponder, which is an interesting little sub-game, but our opponent might just be cycling Troll in their upkeep anyway. Yeah, there you go. I don't think that's worth spending our Lotus Petal to do that. So there's Underground Sea, so we've got all the cards we know out of their hand now. Another Ponder, that's fine. So hopefully we can just make some Sagas, sit on this Soulguide Lantern, and then just beat our opponent down. Because they're not going to be able to get a big monster into play while we've got the Soulguide Lantern. That's the main thing we're scared about. Alright, I don't think I want to play the Thought Monitor yet. We're going to use it as a blue card for our Force of Will. We're just going to sit here with a little Saga Factory. Make some friends. A Brainstorm. That is not where I would like to fight. Although I think if you've got like 1 mana interaction like blasts and spell pierces, you should be brainstorming. You should be countering brainstorms relatively often with them. All right. Let's see what their Undercity Sewers finds them. Another land. Okay. Can we make our friend? They're going to be large. All right. Our opponent thinks they're going to be too large. Okay, so we're looking at a scam style deck list. Not convinced we have the best tools for this one, weirdly. I like Dismember to get rid of, like, if they pivot and go higher up in their Orcish Bowmaster's count. Also, Doughty Voidwalker is the thing we want to kill. So I don't hate that. The counter magic is awkward. Like, it's good to stop reanimates and things, but the problem is, like, you're sometimes just going to get grossed a bunch and it's going to suck. Pithing Needle can name Wasteland. I don't hate that, but if we're finding the Wasteland, it's kind of going to be a bit of an awkward one in some respects. I think we want to trim on a Mox Opal because our opponent's probably bringing in Powder Keg. So I don't think we want to keep that hanging around. So that gives us 1 Dismember. I think, like I was saying earlier, the tempo matchup, you don't really want these Karns very much. So I think we'll have this Dismember, and I think I'd like a Painter's Servant just so we got more routes to the combo. Since we're boarding out the Karns. Like, we've got 3 Grindstones and the Sagas. We don't need any more Grindstones. The question is, do we want any of these Force of Negations? I don't really like them that much in this matchup. We've already got the Metallic Rebukes, which is a much better playing field to try and trade on. We could trim a Bauble, because obviously Orcish Bowmaster is not best friends with... well, he is best friends with our Baubles, but not in a way that benefits us, right? I want the Spellbomb in case they do manage to get a big creature into play. We can bounce it. Like I said, Pithing Needle for... Wasteland is pretty reasonable too. I think I might trim 1 Bauble for a Force. What does this hand do? We play an Urza Saga game and hopefully that gets us there. I think that's acceptable. Like, we can't be mulliganing to try and stop their reanimate hands because they might just not have one and we'll look foolish. And more than that, we don't just look foolish, we'll lose the game, which is the bigger issue. Okay, so if we Saga, we can Saga this turn, or we can Emry this turn. I think I want to Saga. I'll play this Mox Opal now around a daze. Worse against Powder Keg doing it this way, but it is what it is. So next turn we can play Seat of the Synod and get our Urza Saga rolling if we want to. Let's see what their Undercity Sewers does. Okay, they left it on top. So on the one hand, they didn't put a big monster into the graveyard, but on the other hand, they did find something they wanted. All right, so there's the Wasteland. Ooh, they're tapping it for mana. No, okay, they just misclicked. Let's float a mana. It's unlikely we're going to use it for anything. But we do have a spell we can cast in this Dismember. Well, we can't cast it now, but we might be able to cast it if they played like a Stalactite Stalker or something. We don't know how deep into the creature role our opponent has gone there. So we're now poised with the exact same decision we had last time in a very similar board state. And I think I'm going to come to the same conclusion unless we draw something that changes things. Right, this does not change things. I'll play out this Saga, hold up this Dismember. Next turn we can put a bunch of stuff down. We can probably play Emry and Painter, or we can do some Saga stuff. We're going to see what the board looks like and then work out what we're supposed to do. Because we're quite likely to want a... Okay, do we care about this? Not especially. So this makes the Emry route obviously very poor. So, alright. This goes up on counters, so we would like to put a Painter's Servant into play. That gives us Metallic Rebuke mana. Is that greedy to try and go for the combo now, or should we be going for just cranking out some Sagas and you know, leveraging those as our route to victory? So if we play out this Painter... Actually, if we play out this Painter, we still can't Metallic Rebuke anyway. Alright, I think we're going to be on the Saga train here. And we can sort of float this Grindstone in play and sort of pop it at the right time. This will give us our opponent the option of getting a Saga from the Doughty Voidwalker, but I doubt that's better than them just bashing us for 3 every turn. A Ponder from our opponent, that's fine. I could have a Dress Down as well. Like, there's a lot of variation between how much into the scam side of things people are and how much into the sort of reanimator side. You sometimes see people with more than 2 monsters, so like they have like a third big monster. All right, so they're going to hit our Saga here, maybe. Maybe not. Interesting. They're going to do it in response to this. They are. Okay. So we can obviously kill this guy whenever we want. So we will play out an artifact. And if we want to kill this, do we want to do it right now? We probably want to do it off this tomb. Is that right? If we do it off the tomb, then we get Emry for 1. Can't hold up the Metallic Rebuke. I don't really want to play the Painter right now. Alright, I'm going to try and kill this. Alright, I'm going to try and kill this like this. A Force of Negation, pitching a Daze. We can Metallic Rebuke this. They pitched a Daze. I think this is worth trying to do. Have they got another Daze? Okay, they do not. Alright, so we have the only threat in play. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. They don't have anything really scary to reanimate. They can obviously reanimate this Stealthy Voidwalker, and that's going to be a bit of a pain for us. But okay, they're going to cycle with Troll. That can be a thing that's pretty scary. We do have Aether Spellbomb in our deck, so that's a nice one we can pop off if we can find it. Dismember does kill Troll. And Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, that stops some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. So we can't do our Thoughtcast and Thought Monitors freely anymore. So this is looking a little bit weak. And our Life Total is under some pressure. So I'm going to cast an Emry as our starting point. This is card advantage that doesn't actually draw cards. Okay, there is a Grindstone there. So if we play this Spire of Industry, we can play a Painter right now. I don't hate that. In comes a Painter. We name black in case they're playing Snuff Out. And our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Are we just holding back on the blocks here? Are we crashing for some damage? I think we're just going to hold back and try and get our opponent with the Grindstone kill next turn. Our opponent's got some attacks, have they? I would like to block here. I'm not going to block anyone else. They could be trying to get a reanimate off on a Bowmasters to do some more ping damage onto like an Emry or whatever. I don't want to give them that opportunity. I guess they could have Bowmasters and reanimate that we've played into there. Grief pitching Orcish Bowmasters. Alright, that's just the match. So a pretty clean 2-0 there. That felt really good. I wasn't sure how we'd play against Scam, to be honest with you, but that felt pretty good, to be honest. Interesting. I guess the blue-black builds can't really deal with lots of artifacts that easily, although Powder Keg is definitely a thing. So now we are 2-2 going to the final match looking for the positive record, but even the ones we lost were 1-2, so they weren't exactly like us getting rolled either. Alright, let's give it a whirl. Alright, this is what our opening hand looks like. I am not a fan of this one, so let's send this one back. It doesn't really cast its spells very well. I am going to keep this one. We've got double Grindstone. We've got double Painter. So we could play out a Pithing Needle on Wasteland on turn 1. Or we could play out this Seat and this Grindstone. One of those plays is a little bit more aggressive than the other. I think we're right to play this Pithing Needle though. I just don't want to get Wastelanded here. I don't think we need to crack this Petal. That's part of our mana to cast some other stuff. Hopefully we can find like a Soul Land and we can just play Grindstone and Painter and then have a route to victory that way. Once upon a time, so our opponent is likely on like Fiend Artisan, Cradle Control, whatever you want to call it. Noble Hierarch. So we're probably going to see a green source and a Noble Hierarch come into play this turn. There's a basic forest. There's a Noble Hierarch. A very nice forest it is too. Okay. So this Pithing Needle will stop 1 or 2 Wastelands in our opponent's deck. Lotus Petal. That's not the one, is it? So if we play out this Grindstone and this Painter. So what I'm worried about is our opponent greenstones anything for their main deck collector right now. Because that would suck pretty hard. I'm going to play this Painter 7 out. I'm going to name black for snuff out purposes. So there's no point playing the Grindstone off the Lotus Petal. If we find a Soul Land, we can do it all next turn anyway. Our opponent's not going to be a like sort of Chalice of the Void style deck. Now, we can lose our Painted Servant to something like a Fatal Push. We do have another one, so it's worth playing it out. Hopefully we find a Soul Land and we can just put this game to bed next turn. But we'll see. So this is going to be the Greenstone Zenith, maybe. Or we're going to see something a bit spicier. Grindstone Zenith for 2. This is going to be Collect Roof. So our answers to this are very few right now, because we don't have any mana now. So yeah, we're in a terrible, terrible state. And this Collect Roof is going to attack for 3. What do we have that actually answers this? Mana plus Urza Saga is what we have. So we'll play a few turns. If we can find a little bit of mana and do some stuff, fine. But if our opponent, you know, just natural orders or whatever, then we can probably just scoop it up and save our time. This looks like another Green Suns. Okay, this is going to be for Elvish Reclaimer, I believe. Could just be for another Exalted creature. Oh, Quirion Ranger. I don't see that one often. Okay. Yeah. Okay, another Hierarch. 2 mana. It's going to be Fiend Artisan, maybe? There it is. Okay, so they get to crash for 4 this turn. That's pretty respectable. And we don't have the most amount of turns. This is like a 5-turn clock, but our opponent's going to have some stuff to say about this. So I imagine our outs for winning this game are less than 5% at this point. But we might see a little bit more stuff from our opponent that can give us some more information. We've got plenty of time on our clock anyway, so it's not like we're going to be scraping for the minutes. We can just F6 our turns and see if we get any information, or maybe we get lucky enough and draw some Saga stuff and it somehow works. In the face of this Fiend Artisan, I'm not feeling great about it. They didn't even attack. That's a surprise to me. Alright, that's another card we can't do anything with. Let's pass the turn. So if we name green with Painted Servant, our opponent can get any creature they want with Grindstone Zenith and Natural Order. Can help them out. But I don't believe they need any more assistance right now, because they are mashing us up pretty good with the old main deck Collect Roof. We're going to see a Natural Order here. So our opponent can use the Quirion Ranger. Yeah, okay, this feels like a Natural Order now. Or it could just be like a Fiend Artisan looking for something. But this feels like a Natural Order to me. Elvish Reclaimer. Tap the Hierarch. Natural Order, sacrifice the Hierarch? No, they're going to sacrifice the other thing. So they might get an Atraxa here. It's unlikely. Yeah, they're just going for the Big Daddy Behemoth. So if they fetch an Atraxa, we get to see 10 more cards in their deck in case they've got any spice going on. Okay, so Dismember's good. The rest of it, not very good. So Saga Lantern has text, but it's not very impressive. Pithing Needle on some of their things is still fine. Aether Spellbomb is just not a very good answer for a lot of the things they're doing, but we kind of are priced into having that as an option, I think. I guess you want to be slightly less vulnerable to Orcish Bowmasters and Collect Through, so probably trimming some number of these things. I don't think we want Force of Negations. Yes, it can counter some of their key spells. I think we're just better off with Forces and Metallic Rebukes. And we're just going to roll in like this. I imagine this is a matchup where we are the underdog. But we do have some powerful draws, and the power of counter spells to sort of swing games is very real. So maybe we can just ride like a Saga or a Pater to victory. Karn is interesting because we can use the Liquimetal Coating to like just say no to things like the Fiend Artisan, and then also we can fetch Ensnaring Bridges and all sorts. This is a turn 1 Emry, which is kind of one of the things we want to be doing. So I think I'll take this. So you go Artifact, Artifact, play the Emry, draw an extra card. Hopefully it'll be a blue one. Pop our graveyard out so we can see what we're up to. 2 Grindstones. Alright, let's see what our opponent's got. So he says to extract our Grindstones and give us a bad time. Like, we can still win without Grindstones. That's what the Karn and the... Well, the Karn can get us a Grindstone, obviously. But the Karn is a way that we can win without them, as well as the Urza Saga, which can just beat down for a bunch. Okay, we can always just go into Emry, Shadowspear, beatdown. That's not very effective, but sometimes that might be what we end up doing. So we just want to keep making land drops and maybe find a blue card for our Force of Will, so we can stop a Collect Roof or a Grindstone Zenith where X equals 2. They can also use a Grindstone Zenith to go and find a Allosaurus Shepherd to make their future spells uncounterable. Alright, what do we got here? They're going to get a Dryad Arbor. This means that the next turn they can Collect Roof off of a Grindstone Zenith, if that's the thing they have. So we're very much incentivized to find a blue card. We found a blue card. That is an important step. I believe I want another Bauble, whilst there's no Bowmasters. Actually, that's not true. They can get Bowmasters here, and that's really annoying. Interesting. With a Bowmasters, are we counterspelling it right there and then? Possibly. That's an interesting proposition. Let's see what they're drawing. And then we can make some more decisions. We didn't have enough to play the Thoughtcast this turn anyway. A Bajuka Bog. Well, there's definitely some incentive to play that for our opponent. So I think we're going to play some artifacts out so we can get towards a Thoughtcast. We can use this, get rid of our opponent's Misty Rainforest. The Bajuka Bog taking out 2 of our Grindstones is not actually a big deal because of the Karn, but it means that we're more likely to use our Karn in a way that I'm not necessarily wanting to. Okay, so we've got another Bauble. So if they do bog us this turn, we can then Bauble. If we have to use the Thoughtcast to counterspell a Collector Roof or a Greenstone Zenith where X is 2 or 3, because they can overpay and then get it and try and trick you that way. So I'm playing the build with the Elvish Spirit Guide that a few people are on. Alright, a Fiend Artisan. So this finds Collector Roof. So I think we probably have to say no to this, don't we? Because that's just a Collector Roof next turn. So they're going to do this, then they're going to Bajuka Bog us. There it is. But we already have another Bauble to reload with our Emry. Let's see if we can get there. A Metallic Rebuke is interesting. That gives us another answer to some of the things we're most scared of. Let's have a look at the top card of our opponent's library. Noble Hierarch. Get this back. Let's cast it. And yes, I would like to draw some more cards. So we've established Howling Mine again. And it's that Noble Hierarch still. And now we have Metallic Rebuke up, as well as Soul-Guide Lantern. A Thoughtcast, okay. I don't hate that one. I'm kind of just playing into Bowmasters a little bit, but that's kind of how we have here. Our opponent's going to be tapping out some amount of time, I would hope. What fresh hell is this? A Fiend Artisan. So the same logic as last time. You cannot have this. They could have a Veil of Summer here. No, they can't because the Hierarch can't tap. Alright. Over to us. A Pithing Needle. We could shut down some of the annoying things, but alas, 'tis not to be. So we have 1 artifact, 2 artifact, 3 artifact, 4 artifact. This gives us access to a 1-mana Thoughtcast. Our opponent cannot play a Bowmasters on this board. A Karn, the Great Creator. Is that where I want to be right now? I'm pretty happy to draw another card. Let's do that. I'd like to find some blue cards. That would be good. Let's see what they're drawing. A Green Sun Zenith. Okay. So what does that mean for our next turn? So we can try and crack the Soul-Guide Lantern to see if we hit a blue card to go with a Force of Will that we may or may not draw. Or it can dig us towards a Dismember, which is also acceptable. We could just jam this Karn and have something else going on. What have we got on our Karn board that actually helps here? None of these particularly help. Ensnaring Bridge isn't the worst though. Alright. Let's get our Karn on the road. I think I'm just going to minus this and get the Ensnaring Bridge to protect us from the spooky, scary world of Crater Hoof Behemoth. Alright. We've drawn a lot more cards than our opponent. But I'm still pretty scared of what our opponent's got. Okay, there's the Force of Will. So maybe we could have kept the Saga Lantern up to try and find a blue card, but that's not the line we opted for. We've already spent 2 Force of Wills, so I was not expecting to draw the third. I think statistically it was the right play to play the Karn instead. They can jab the Karn down to 1, so we can't get another artifact. That's the thing they're interested in doing. I think what's most likely to happen here is the Collector Roof off of the Green Sun Zenith, which is obviously annoying, but we can live with it. And we probably hold the Pithing Needle until we need to play it, because we can name either Elvish Reclaimer or Fiend Artisan, and we can wait to see which one comes down because they'll have Summoning Sickness, so we can just blank it after they've played it and sort of use it as a reactive piece rather than trying to stop something before it comes down. Because it's kind of the same deal, except we know we're actually getting some value out of it. So we got 3 Dismembers to draw to try and take out this Collector Roof. Right, here is the Green Sun Zenith. I don't think we're going to crack this Soul Guide to shrink creatures right away. Alright, so I think they're attacking Karn for 2 with his Dryad Arbor, because it's going to have Exalted. There it goes. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. We've got the mana to cast a Dismember at least. That is a spell we can also cast. Comes at a little bit of a premium though. What do we want here? I guess I'll take the Bauble for later. I think even this 1-2 back when they're going to attack us with this Collector Roof is going to work well for us. Let's Bauble into play. Let's play the Ensnaring Bridge here. And then we have a choice of if we're playing the Pithing Needle out or not. I feel like playing the Pithing Needle out here is going to be useful. Because it's going to get our hand more empty. Utilise this mana a bit more. What are we playing? I'm more worried about Fiend Artisan than I am about anything else. But is Outland Liberator a thing I should also be worried about? I think it probably is. I'm going to take this. Or it could be Beseiju is the other one. Beseiju who endures. I'll get rid of that one. Because we can counter the other spells, we can't counter Beseiju. And then I think we will plus on our Ensnaring Bridge. Or our Soul Guide Lantern, just have a 1-1 that we can chump block with. Right, I'm going to make my Ensnaring Bridge a 3-3 guy. We've got counter magic that we can preserve it with, if we have to. This way our Karn is more likely to live. And then maybe we can start stripping all our opponent's mana sources with the Liquimetal Coating, and then we just kind of try and draw into a Dismember with enough life to actually use it at some point. We've got Force and we've got Metallic Rebuke. They both cost us 1 life to use, so ideally I'd prefer to use the Rebuke because then we can at least have the Force up again for something later. Force of Vigor. Okay, let's say no to this one, shall we? So blue, and then we'll also tap this and this. And we have turned the removal spells of our opponent onto this Ensnaring Bridge this turn. I think having a creature like we trade the Ensnaring Bridge for a Collector Roof if they want to attack with the Exalted. We're going to see another Grist the Hunger Tide. All right, we have turned on the removal in a way that I was not hoping to do. Yikes. Okay. Grist the Hunger Tide is another thing we could have Pithing Needled. Allosaurus Shepherd. And then they're going to... It's weird they're just out the other way around, actually. They could have made sure their Grist resolved. It's going to sack their Dryad Arbor, blow up our Ensnaring Bridge, and then attack with Collector Roof on our Karn. Oh no, they're just going to straight up blow up our Karn. Interesting. So that's how I would have handled that turn myself. But our opponent knows what they're doing. Okay, there's a Saga. This is one of the things that can actually get us out of this situation, potentially. How much do I want this Emry Lurker of the Loch in play? I think it's nice to have it around. I'm just going to use it to play a Lotus Petal and get more stuff going. We could find something like a Thought Monitor. We may be able to cast at some point. But we have a plan. That plan is don't die to our Ancient Tombs while we make some massive creatures. So our opponent's win condition now is just keep plussing this Grist until they can just minus it and kill us. And maybe getting loaded chip shots with 1/1s in the meantime. So they can get 2 damage in this turn. And maybe they can just attack with some little guys and overrun with the Allosaurus Shepherd down the line. This is the same. Yes, this is 2 damage, so it's the same next turn when they have the insect as well. Take the hit here. We're in that awkward spot again of being stuck under an Ensnaring Bridge whilst we have a Force of Will. Now, the Ensnaring Bridge is going to stop them from just overrunning us with a Crate Hoof or something. Our opponent is Hellbent. If we can just find... Okay. Is Karn better than a massive creature here? I'm not sure if it is, to be honest. Interesting. What does the Karn do? What does the Karn do? Like, our opponent doesn't know that our Karn's kind of blank here because we don't have anything like a Lattice. I don't think we're trying to cheese our opponent out by fetching something with Karn and making them scoop thinking it's a lattice. But that is a situation we may find ourselves in at some point. So we're just going to make a really big friend. And then hopefully find a Dismember, get rid of this oof, and then all of a sudden stick a Shadowspear on a giant creature and then it should be lights out. Although we do have our own Ensnaring Bridge to deal with. Weirdly. But, yeah. We can animate our Ensnaring Bridge and just send it at like their grist. And then it'll either eat something or eat their grist. And that's pretty reasonable. But I think we're going to die to our Ancient Tombs here. Okay, then Mildra, Ignoble Hierarch off of that Underground Mortuary. Alright, opponent, what are you going to do? Black, black. Black, green. Once Upon a Time. Okay. What's the best card in your top 5 there? Ignoble Hierarch. Interesting. Right, they're milling here. So this is just another thing they can sack at some point. I don't believe our opponent is attacking here, unless they're attacking with lots of little things and trying to pressure our Ancient Tomb. Okay, I did not want to pressure Ancient Tomb. Ugh, I hate paying this life, but I think it's correct. So we draw. There's the Dismember. Okay. That's a pretty important one. We don't have a painter yet. Alright, so we'll make this. We are getting dangerously low with our life total here. Do you have anything that can deal with this grist after we bop their little friend? No, we do not. So we're probably just getting this Grindstone, so we're ready to win if we draw Painter. We can just Dismember this and be done with it. I don't really want to play any of these cards out. I'm probably going to attack with a bunch of stuff. We could Dismember and then put the thing on the construct. I don't think that's a good way of trying to win this game. Alright. So we can go and get the Karn. But then we're kind of pressured so much by our Ancient Tombs here. Okay. So what's the deal here? If we take 4 life, so we get a 2. So our Ancient Tombs are just off. So then we only have 1, 2, 3 mana here. So that's not enough. Yeah, this is an awkward situation. Our opponent's grist isn't lethal yet. But it will be next turn. Or not next turn, turn after next. So I think we got one more turn. And try and shake something loose here. Ugh, Ancient Tomb. So if we have to pay mana on, so we pay 2 life for this, and we pay 1 life for this, then our Dismember is costing us 5 life. So we pay 1 on this and 4. So we can Dismember this. Then we have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, including the Emry. But they only need 1 creature to get through if we go that low. And that is not where we need to be. If we play out this Karn, we basically can't ever Dismember because of the mana that we happen to have drawn this game. Because of our own Ensnaring Bridge, we also can't Dismember the Collector Roof. Jeez. I think we have to Dismember the Collector Roof in our opponent's end step. Cycle our Soul Guide Lantern. And hope to find a Painter. And some mana. Have they got another Surveil land here? No, they have a Dryad Arbor. They're going to just attack us with a bunch of things, are they? I haven't done the math as to whether or not this kills us. And maybe I should have. Maybe that's on me. Maybe we're supposed to Dismember the Collector Roof and put the... we're supposed to Dismember the Collector Roof and then put the Shadowspear on one of our guys. But then they just kill it with a grist and attack with a bunch. We get attacked. Please don't attack us. They did not attack us. Okay. So this is our window to do something. So we have to kill this Collector Roof, I believe. This is our hit and hope. This will unlock our artifacts. I will draw a card. No Bowmasters possible here. Opponent's got no cards in hand. Emry Lurker the Loch is not going to be very relevant here. We can't tap anything else really. We can draw another card with the Bauble as well, actually, can't we? We don't really care what our opponent's top card is. Windswept Heath. Okay. Alright. Deck. It's got to be good. Hook me up, deck. A Thoughtcast. Okay, that's more looks at something that can actually win us the game. And a Thought Monitor. That's also more looks. But the Thoughtcast is cheaper, so that's the better one. So we don't get to play the Karn because we die. These extra draws cost too much mana. We can get additional mana from our Lotus Petal. We can't get our own Ensnaring Bridge out of play here. We can't. We could play Karn, turn this into a creature, attack the Grist. They'll just take it and then kill us on the crackback. All right, we're gonna draw some more cards. Okay. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. We have the Painter. Oh, yikes. This is tough. We die to our own Ancient Tomb. So, 1 mana, 2 mana. We play Painter out. We only have 1 mana for Grindstone activation. We have 2 mana for Grindstone activation because of the Emry. So we need to cast the Thought Monitor here to try and draw us 2 mana sources. Oh, it's just... It was 2 mana sources. I should have been more specific to my deck here. Alright, let's cast this. We'll name Blue, I guess. Get Lotus Petal back. We're just slightly off. We can't gain any life. Play another Ancient Tomb. And we just don't have it. Ugh. That was tough. I think Ensnaring Bridge was just a trap. I think both the times I got, like all the times I got Ensnaring Bridge this league, it felt like a trap. Which is interesting. Because we kind of rely on our constructs more so than the red painted decks where they have all the welder shenanigans and dragon engines and they just have more stuff that kind of loops round and round and round, and we don't really have that here. Alright, we finished 2-3, but if you look at our matches, there's only one 0-2 loss and we were 1 mana away from winning that one, and then we kind of got baited by our own Ensnaring Bridge a little bit. But yeah, so we lost 1-2 in 2 of the rounds and we did beat the Mono Red Prism matchup anyway, so I think that is probably a slightly favourable matchup, but it doesn't mean you can't lose it. So what do I think about this deck? Well, I was surprised to see this win a challenge because I think the Rescaminator decks are generally pretty good against this, because if you look at the graveyard hate this deck has, it has 1 Saga Lantern. Yes, it can tutor it, but it's very rarely going to have it in its opener. And it has 1 Tormod Crypt in the side. So the sort of the Rescaminator plan is going to be very good. They can either get like a massive creature into play that just kind of wrecks everything we're doing, or they can just do the grief poke and then get us. Now, we do have counter magic, so we can interact with that, with like Force of Wills and things and negations out of the sideboard. But that doesn't feel very profitable into a grief, because the grief kind of just goes through that and you like, okay, I guess I counter it. Oh, they've reanimated it. I guess I lose something anyway. You just never end up in a good spot when that happens. So that does feel an issue. And the other issue that I sort of had going into this was a lot of decks have access to Collect Roof and like Null Rods and things, because there are so many decks out there, you know, like the Epic Storm, the Jeweled Lotus deck, Saga Storm, there's Painter, 8-cast. There's so many decks that want to be abusing artifact activated abilities that people are running those sorts of effects in, you know, pretty high frequency these days. I play like 4 in Turbo decks, for example. That's a bit excessive compared to some other decks, but it's not unusual to see 2 or 3 of them in a deck, which is really hard for us to deal with, right? We can counter spell on the way down, but we don't always get that luxury. Sometimes they'll poke through with like a Thoughtseize or whatever, or maybe they're playing a blue deck and they can like daze when we try and counter their Null Rod, and then we just nowhere. It just feels really hard to play this sort of deck against a Null Rod. Whereas I think Red Painter has a little bit more gameplay because you can just play more creatures, right? You're doing more creature things. You've got the Chaos Defiler, which is a really big draw because you have a way of getting those things out of play. Whereas we don't. If it's in play, we're knackered. We've got this one Otawara, and then obviously Spellbomb's not going to work against any of those because it's an artifact. So we kind of are a little bit more vulnerable to that sort of thing, which is why you see 8-cast decks these days playing Patchwork automatons and stuff, right? Because, oh, you've played a Null Rod, I can still just play a massive guy, and I can still use my lands to cast my artifacts and stuff. They can still cast a Cap Cannoneer, and then what are you doing? You're going to get beaten down by this massive turtle. So I definitely think there's a lot of hostility to this sort of build, and especially like all the tempo decks running around and then having Karn, like this 4-drop you're trying to resolve. It does feel a bit much, in my opinion, to be trying to play in the current format. Obviously, you know, ThomasH won a challenge with it, so what do I know, right? And obviously, I'm not really an expert with this particular deck anyway. But those are some definite concerns I have with playing a list like this. I think I do prefer the ability to have some actual answers. And I do think that having the Ensnaring Bridge definitely baited us a few times. It's right to have it in there, but I think someone like me coming to playing this deck and not really having many reps with it at all is going to have a little bit of a rough time. Getting the Ensnaring Bridge in the wrong situations and sort of locking you out. Of course, if we'd have drawn a land that wasn't an Ancient Tomb, then we'd have been fine. And that last one, so we were pretty close still. But, you know, clearly what this deck is doing is legacy power level, though. You know, drawing a bunch of cards, countering spells, an I win button off of Painted Servant Grindstone that you can, you know, really jam down people's throats early with all the fast mana from our artifacts, as well as our soul lands. And we've got lots of ability to find our Grindstone. I think this deck is cool. I don't think it's as good as it once was. There was a while where, you know, it wasn't the longest period of time, but there was definitely a few weeks where Mono Blue Painter was arguably the best deck in Legacy for a very sort of brief flash in the pan. It was still good, like, after that as well. There was just a week where it was just dominating a bunch of people, like a couple of weeks. Just people just playing, obviously a slightly different list to this. But things are different now. Orcish Bowmasters exist. We did get blown out by it from a deck we weren't expecting to see it from at one point as well, which was a little bit awkward for us. So I think the format is very hostile to this. But if you can navigate that, get the reps in, then maybe you can get through it. I'm still not convinced I want to be playing Karn the Great Creator in the format right now. It's obviously very good against some decks, you know, as like a prison-y style piece against the artifact combo decks. So I do like it in that aspect. But against a lot of the tempo decks, which is, you know, a large portion of the format right now, it feels a little bit sketchy to me. And we don't even have the Mycosynth win, which is, you know, you can just play Mycosynth Lattice and then, you know, our Karn was kind of useless for a lot of time in this game, right? We could have played a Karn and done some stuff with it, but didn't do anything. So we ended up just making like Saga tokens and stuff, when if we'd have played a Karn and had a Lattice, we could just play the Lattice and we know we're not getting killed by Grist or anything. We just need to make sure that we keep our Ensnaring Bridge keeping their creatures back, and that would have been all right. So I think there's a little bit of tension, a little bit of hostility to this deck, but clearly, you know, it's powerful and can do its stuff, and no one's going to be like surprised to see it win an event, but it's not something that you would expect to win an event, if that makes any sense. All right, I think I'm done talking about this one. It was nice to see something a little bit different. People have been moaning about Legacy lately. People are pretty unhappy with the way the format lies with grief and things, but people are having success with some interesting things like this. You're also seeing a big resurgence of green-white Elvish Reclaimer, Knight of the Reliquary style decks at the moment. They're very good into a lot of these Rescaminator decks. Like, just Elvish Reclaimer is just so good into those decks right now. So I think there's a lot of adaptation going on. Delver decks have picked up again because they've just started slamming a bunch of cages in their deck, and then they can sort of beat the Fair Planner scam. So I think there's a lot more play to the format than some people were necessarily saying, thinking it was all skies falling sort of thing because they didn't like playing against grief. But nevertheless, that's the league for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And I think this is going out before April, but at the beginning of April, I'm going to be doing a bunch of donation deck giveaways on my Patreon for anyone who's subscribed to any of the monetized tiers. So that's like $2, $8, and $20 or something like that, I think the tiers are. So if you're subscribed to any of those, you're in with a chance of getting a free donation deck, because it's my birthday in April, and I thought I'd give something back to all you lovely people who've supported me. So if that interests you, by all means, join my Patreon. But most importantly, just keep loving Legacy, watching Legacy, playing Legacy, because it is the best thing you can do with Magic the Gathering cards. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me and the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.